Hey Trailblazers and Tarmac Tacklers, welcome to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. This is your one-stop shop for everything ultra, road and trail running for busy people. I am your host, Nick Hancock, a certified USCA ultra running coach and UK athletics coach in running fitness. I am here to answer your questions and provide a little bit of humour and inspiration for those tackling marathons and beyond. So whether you're squeezing miles into a busy schedule or just dipping your toes into long distance running, I have got your back. Prepare for some laughs, learning and a few colourful words. So lace up, gear up and get ready for maximum mileage. Let's get into it. On this week's episode, I answer my athletes' questions. They put me on the hot seat once a month and they throw questions at me, sometimes ahead of time, sometimes on the spot. And we talk about everything to do with running. Enjoy. So, as I always do, start off with a joke. And this one is straight from Max. How'd you get Pikachu on a bus? Pokemon. Oh, there's Finn. There's a joke for you, Finn. How'd you get Pikachu on the bus?
I don't know.
Pokemon. I'll make you collapse.
James lives literally like next village, and we've known each other for quite a while. And our kids have had play dates before, so yeah. Welcome to the hot seat, and I do have some questions prepared ahead of time. Something I just wanted to sort of talk about today that I was thinking about on my run today. And actually, I've done a little short reel for Instagram for it as well. Something that I've been, I was talking to Chris just now about working on weaknesses, and something that I've been really weak with for my entire running career really is heat. I mean, I suck in the hot weather, just so bad. So something I've really been working on is how to handle the heat better. So first of all, something I am going to do before, in fact, I'm going to probably do this before all of my A races now, probably not my B races and C races, but all of my A races, even in the winter, it's shown to have benefits regardless of the temperature of the weather, is to do heat acclimation training. And one of the easiest and cheapest ways of doing that, the days of, stick loads of layers on and go out for a run, and get properly sweaty. Actually, what you're doing is you already got the stress from your training, but then you're adding the stress of being in a hot environment on top of it, and it just compounds and it can totally wipe you out. So that's kind of like a last resort. There's actually a sort of a hierarchy of needs with it. And right at the top is sauna. Chris has just put it in chat. The sauna has been a game changer for him, as he says, and all it takes is 25, 30 minutes every day for the 10 days leading up to your race. Give yourself 2 days in between your last sauna session and your race if you're racing on the Saturday. Oh, and Nick all the way over in the US. How you doing, mate?
Hey, everyone.
The Instagram superstar.
Probably the only kind of superstar I could ever be.
1.2 million views now. Crazy. Of Nick trying to get up the stairs. I was just talking about heat acclimation training, Nick. So sauna, 10 days before you race, every day for about 25, 30 minutes is all the dose needs to be. It does need to be at least 160, I think it's 160 degrees or whatever it is, Fahrenheit. I can't remember the exact, but it needs to be a good sauna. Some gyms and health clubs can be a little bit reticent to crank the heat up too much in case somebody passes out in them, but that is a really easy way and pretty cheap way, to be honest, of getting heat acclimated. If you are racing on a Saturday, don't do it on Thursday and Friday. If you're racing on a Sunday, don't do it on the Friday and Saturday. So stop on either the Wednesday or the Thursday. But otherwise, 10 days, and it's a pretty good way of getting acclimated to the heat for a race, any race, at any time of the year. Something else I've been sort of doing without the sauna, one has been really being mindful about the whole thing and actually accepting, a bit like when I first started running. When we all first started running, we all hate hills, right? Everyone hates hills when they first start doing it. But if you learn to love them, then you'll get good at them. They'll pay you back in spades. And that's kind of what I've been really trying to concentrate on recently is, okay, it's hot, accept it. when I say hot, I mean, Nick, what is it with you guys at the moment? Like 30 plus Celsius?
So us ignorant Americans are the only one that don't use, metric system and that. So I don't know what the conversions are, but it's like upper 80s, low 90s Fahrenheit. I think that's low to mid 30s Celsius, I believe.
And you've gone,
but yeah, it's pretty hot. I'm very pale and fair skinned, so I don't do well
ginger
in the sun. Yeah, I turn into a defeated lobster very quickly. So obviously I have to wear lots and lots of sun lotion. If not, I mean, I get very badly sun poisoning. But then the problem is I wear like the mineral based sun lotion that, stays on all day long, but then it doesn't let you sweat and cool off very well. It almost keeps you warmer because it's a barrier. So it's preventing the sun from coming in, but it's also preventing your sweat from coming out. So it's kind of a double sword.
Try using a dry suntan lotion rather than something oily.
Yeah, I've tried a lot of them. Some of the dry ones, at least here, they're in like aerosol cans, and they just don't last more than an hour or two.
So anyway, just Chris asked in the chat, where is it you're based, Nick?
I'm in Ohio. I don't know how familiar where you guys are all at, but it's like northeastern-ish America.
We're all in a country that's smaller than your state.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We only have 2 seasons, unfortunately. Terrible winter and terrible summer. So it goes straight from 10 inches of snow into blistering sun heat. So
I was just going to say, you've literally just gone from cold, frozen trails to now it's like desert.
Yeah, we have like a couple weeks of in between every year, but that's it.
So anyway, accepting the fact that, it is warm now, and instead of whinging about it and going, oh, I'm not very good in it, to actually embrace it, to being a bit more mindful about it. Something I've really found super helpful is really focusing on my breathing and getting good deep breaths in. I was noticing, I don't know if this is just me or if, next time you're out running in the heat, I was just taking much shallower breaths. So I've been really concentrating on good deep breaths, nice and rhythmic. That's really helped. I always put good focus on my form anyway, but extra focus on my form. It can be really easy when it's hot and you're a bit fed up to start crouching over and running like Quasimodo because you're like, ooh, it's too hot. But if you just really keep yourself with good form and nice and relaxed as well, that's been really helping. And for any of you who follow me on Instagram, not giving a shit about my pace either. Like really not giving a shit. And today, whilst I was doing this video for Instagram, 2 months ago, my easy pace at that heart rate would have been 8-minute mile. Today it was like 9:50. Super slow. But do I care? No. I don't care what it says on Strava. And as my new hashtag has developed, no one gives a fuck about your pace on Strava. So yeah, that's been super helpful. And then obvious things like hydration, plenty, not so much on the run. I mean, today I ran for like 50, 55 minutes. So it wasn't long enough to need to take something with me. I know Chris is the opposite of me, and he, hang on 1 second. Somebody's trying to join. Just sending them the link. There you go. Chris is showing us his bottle. He's on like a 3-minute run and he's taken his entire hydration vest with him.
And he's only nailed 500 mils.
He can run a 19-minute 5K at parkrun and he takes his hydration vest with him. If you took the hydration vest, he'd do 18 minutes.
I'd die as well.
So yeah, just make sure you're well hydrated, not necessarily taking hydration with you unless you are like desperate for it. Obviously for long runs, yes. In fact, anything over an hour, I'd definitely say take it with you. If anything under, maybe not so much. And then when it comes to speed sessions, if you don't quite hit some of the paces, particularly if it is a session where there are paces that have been noted, if you're not hitting it, don't worry about it. The level of effort will be there. You've got to think that when it is this hot, I'm talking like we live in Dubai. It's like 20 degrees. But when it is this warm, all of that blood that is going to the working muscles is now being diverted away to do things like cooling, helping with the sweating process, going to the skin, all that kind of stuff. And it's also taking away from your gut as well. So for those longer runs, it can be a little bit more difficult to fuel. And that's something for you to note there, Nick, as well. You go into your 100-miler in a few weeks, that if it is going to be that warm, then that hydration is going to be even more important when it comes with fueling.
Yeah, I did notice that last weekend. I think was my first long trail run in the heat, and I forget what it was. I think it was 16 miles or something. But I think I drank over a gallon of water in that 16 miles.
Yeah, I was not far off that yesterday. I did a marathon yesterday. I took a litre with me, and I had about 1.5 litres in the pub. In literally 5 minutes, I was like, "Oh, thank you, I'm off."
Yeah.
Yes, James, we did a lot of work with James's nutrition and hydration, and he's pretty much nailed it down to 1 litre per hour, which is a lot. Turn that into a 10-hour race, or as he's got in August this year, 145-miler he's doing. That's going to be many, 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 many hours on feet. I mean, you're not going to drink 24.
And it wasn't. It was 1 litre an hour at the peak of the day when I did endure a couple of summers ago, which escapes me. Who's doing it? Who's doing endure leads?
Nathan,
yeah. Now it kind of wound down to more like 500 mils through the night once the temperatures dropped, but it was that whole kind of wanting to keep my bladder, keep producing urine as a sign that things weren't shutting down, and that was really, really key, I think, well, to my body being happy to accept food as well for that long.
Yeah, especially all the troubles you've had with your gut in the past. So
the challenge with the event this summer is that access to water isn't going to be as abundant as it is at Endure, where you've got access to fluid every 2.5 miles at Endure. So it's a 5-mile loop, but you've actually got water and electrolytes at halfway around the loop, so you can just carry a soft flask, whereas I've got 25 miles between aid stations at this event coming up. So yeah, a bit tricky.
Might be worth looking at a bladder.
Yeah, I mean that, or just more bottles. I mean, kind of one or the other. There are taps available when you can pay £5 for a key to access these taps on the canals. So again, it's knowing exactly when they're coming to kind of drink tactfully almost.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Did anybody want to add anything on the warm weather side of things?
Yeah, I did kind of have a question. I was thinking about on my recent hot runs. How do you gauge how much electrolytes and salt you take in? You just go by field. I consider doing one of those sweat tests, because I don't know if I'm underdoing it, overdoing it, especially in this heat and for these significantly longer distances. It's not that big of a deal if you screw it up, over 2 hours or 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever. But once you get to 20, 30 hours, I assume it has a lot more of a detrimental impact.
So this is, like a lot of these things, is a bit of a contentious subject. And James has just put a couple of things in the chat there. How salty are you as a sweater? If you did that on your head after a run and it's really gritty.
Yeah.
Now, some conventional wisdom would say that means you're losing a lot of electrolytes. But actually, there's a lot of new evidence starting to come through that will say, actually, that's got nothing to do with you losing loads of electrolytes. You've just got too much salt in your diet.
Yeah, so I get like on my face and my forehead, after long runs, like if I rub it, I can feel, it's like sand. So I'm assuming it's the salt.
It is. Yeah.
I purposely salt most of my meals too, just with a little bit of sea salt, especially like anything that I'm having before I go out in the heat. I don't know if that's right or not, but I mean, I don't get any cramping or anything, or I haven't noticed any bad impacts from it, but I'm just wondering, like, as it gets hotter and the distances get longer.
That's another thing, that the arguments that are coming out are actually cramping has got very little to do with the amount of salts that you're taking. Cramping is actually more just down to the endurance that your muscles are able to put up whilst you're doing these longer distances. When it comes to salt tablets, no, don't take them. The evidence is just not there for them. And Chris, you've asked the question, you've mentioned the word placebo effect. It's a totally different subject, but there's pretty good evidence that actually all it is it's a placebo effect. There isn't actually doing anything taking salt tablets. I don't advise it, but I don't say don't do it either. I think it's one of those things that, like anything with nutrition, Beck's, given she's pretty much almost done a degree in nutrition, will probably back this up as well. It's so individual. It's something you've just got to try. And you know, if you went out and did a 20 miler and you took salt tablets and you were feeling awesome, and then or electrolyte powders or whatever it is, and then the next week you went and did the same run, but you omitted salt tablets and electrolytes or whatever it is from your run, and you felt awful and you were cramping everywhere, then I think you're kind of working this stuff out for yourself. I've stopped taking any kind of. I used to do the 1500 pH from Precision Hydration, who are kind of world leaders really in the whole electrolyte industry. I used to take them. I've stopped doing it. I haven't noticed any difference at all. In fact, I've just noticed that the cramps that I used to get have stopped going as I've run longer and gotten stronger.
So one thing, Nick, that I've found is, as you know, I kind of get exertion headaches and kind of migraines after going really hard. And I've found that the electrolytes are actually reducing that for me. So I think probably not so much about muscular performance or cramps, but something else is going on there. But definitely it's helping me to kind of have those kind of after the event.
Yeah,
for me at least.
Yeah, like I say, it's very much down to I think, like with anything nutrition, it's really down to you as a person. What, you know, I don't get, headaches or anything after doing a hard session. So I couldn't tell you, but if it works for you, Chris, then, I think that's the beauty of individuality and like any of this stuff particularly with nutrition, it's so individual. And James will attest to that. Explain osmosis, Mr. Pharmacist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of getting that in there because there's two bits around. Obviously, the science of the electrolytes is do you need those electrolytes back on board to replenish low stocks? And as Nick said, and I listen to a variety of podcasts, there's some scientists out there that think supplementing with them in race doesn't really do anything because they're not going to get where they need to get in that time. But what does happen is you add anything to water, you change the osmolarity of it. So essentially, the water wants to cross the membrane out of your GI more readily. So I think I forget who it was that said it. I can't remember. Anyway, about the headaches and stuff afterwards, it might be as much about the electrolytes themselves as it is about the fact it forces the fluid into your system quicker. So I will do it after. I'll do it on hot days. I'll just bang a scoop of electrolyte powder into a pint of water, just because I know it's going to kind of get into my system a bit quicker. So there's something around that which, if you have dodgy gut like I do, and you don't want to essentially have lots of water banging around in your GI that's potentially going to end up in an undignified manner at the other end, then that might be the difference of keeping that absorption going.
A la Race to the Stones.
Yeah. Well, that was it, wasn't it? I was jumping over the fence and shitting in a field while Nick just stood there and waited for me. It wasn't a great moment in my life.
Don't worry, James. Every single hot seat, we always talk about pooping every time.
The other key thing with that though is if you're starting to get to that point, just absolutely easing off the gas and like walking or even just taking a break so that blood supply, which is being deprived from your GI, can get a chance to kind of get back down there and try and correct things a bit. I think that is a good kind of recovery strategy.
Again, and going back to that hot day scenario, that day at Race to the Stones, it was boiling, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I ran the last 25 miles with James, at which point he was doing all right, and then it just got hotter and hotter, and it was a pretty warm day, and the whole manner of things started going wrong.
I've never not finished anything, so too ignorant to at the moment, but it will happen. I used to pre-dose of Imodium as well at that point in my running as well, as a much of any, as a, again, placebo peace of mind that it wasn't going to end in tragedy. I used to take Imodium before I went out, but I don't do that now, and I wouldn't recommend it really.
Tell you actually, while you are on the call, James, and given your profession as a pharmacist, what is it you don't take after a race until you are hydrated enough? Is it ibuprofen?
Ibuprofen or any drug in that non-steroidal family. So ibuprofen, naproxen, diclofenac, because what they do, as well as being good pain relievers, is they affect the blood flow into and out of the kidneys. So yeah, what we call glomerular filtration, and the pressures around that get affected. So you're effectively sort of preventing your kidneys from being able to work like they need to, which when you're in a dehydrated state is you're adding on to the risk of what we call an acute kidney injury, where you do your kidneys some damage. So my rule of thumb is I use paracetamol. I will use it in running. I might even take some before I head out if I'm going to do like I might when I do the canal race. I've got no issues with paracetamol other than the fact that you're masking pain, and pain is a signal that you perhaps want to be tuned into for your own well-being, but you make that judgment call. And I don't use ibuprofen post-race until I'm peeing regularly and it's a fairly sensible colour.
You don't use it in race either, right? Totally.
Ibuprofen? No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
No.
Because I can guarantee, knowing my fluid balance and how I manage it, I'm going to be in a dehydrated state. So it's not. You don't want to add that into the mix.
I see people on the Facebook groups all the time talking about it, going, "Oh, I'm going to take some ibuprofen," and
it's a gastric irritant as well. Like it irritates the stomach lining as well. It affects your stomach acid production. So again, there's a double whammy there that for some people it could.
Yeah, I've read of people getting some wicked stomach ulcers in ultras from taking ibuprofen.
Yeah. So as I say, until I'm peeing regularly and of a sensible colour, at which point I'm happy my kidneys are back online. Essentially, at that point, I'll crack on with ibuprofen as part of my post-race sleep management, basically, because I don't sleep very well because of all the, that dull waking after an event. I'm a very light sleeper.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, let's get on to some of the questions that have already been posted. So I'll start off with Steve because I had it on my screen. And it's a question that somebody else has already asked me this week. And I do get asked quite a lot. I will first just kind of set the scene with, I am not a qualified nutritionist, so I am not going to advise on any of this. I think all I can do is kind of give my opinion and tell you what I take as supplements. So Steve's question is, what supplements should we be taking? As I said, I can't give you that advice because I'm not a qualified nutritionist. But I would say, if you really want to get into the detail of that kind of stuff, speak to a sports nutritionist. I can recommend a couple. Yes, it is expensive, James. They will get you to do a blood test as well, which also adds to the cost. It probably costs you all in about 500 quid to get an initial picture of what supplementation you may need to take. But any good nutritionist should tell you food first. Maybe not food only, but a lot of the times where there are perhaps some deficiencies, it's a case of, well, let's not take a supplement yet. Let's add in the foods that are going to give you that thing first before we start going down the supplementation route. From a sports performance perspective, so what I take, and I'm a bit of a supplement monster, if I'm honest. So I have a protein shake once a day, and I've just started working with Protein Works, which is quite cool. So now I don't have to pay for it because it's expensive. I take creatine. I take creatine for a couple of reasons. One is because I am trying to lose a little bit of puppy fat at the moment with everything that we've had going on as a family and ultras and things going on. We've just eaten like shit, really. No, James, but whilst I have been trying to lose a bit of fat, what I don't want to do is lose muscle. And taking creatine does help to prevent any kind of muscle loss if you are trying to get lean. Nick, you'll probably attest to this as well, being a bodybuilder. Yeah, creatine helps to reduce the effects of weight loss, fat loss, because if you're in a calorie deficit, you are going to lose muscle. And we don't want to do that, despite what runners over the years might think of skinnier is better. It's not at all. Muscle mass is precious, so don't lose it, particularly as most of us are heading towards our midlife crises or already in them. So that's one reason, but also because it just helps me lift heavier.
Mm-hmm.
Power that it helps generate. Could I give you an actual figure? No, probably not. And also, I think I do notice the difference when I don't take creatine for a while. My DOMs are worse, delayed onset muscle soreness. So I take creatine for that reason. There is starting to become quite a bit of chatter in endurance circles of actually, does it help endurance runners? There's a bit more evidence needed on it, but it is starting to become a bit more of a supplement. I mean, it's so well studied and it's so safe. I don't know, why wouldn't I take it?
I used to take it a while ago when I was doing more weight and less running, but I'm not. Yeah, this is the thing. You see, I'm a scientist, but I was kind of, when I do my job all day as a scientist, and I don't really want to read into the science of nutrition and things, but you're getting bombarded with so much stuff saying use this, use the other, especially on social media. It's just horrible, isn't it? Everyone's saying use something different, so it's just useful to know what people find useful and might be worth trying, rather than just going to say, I don't know, protein works or one of the others, and looking at the list of supplements they've got, and they look at these 200 different things you could take.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, James, you mentioned a couple of things around, like, it adds fluid. You need to load for 8 to 10 weeks. That's a little bit older, maybe even some bro science in there. It's not really advised now. Just 5 grams of creatine a day, really. There's no, the whole loading phase has been kind of scratched off. Maybe if you're bodybuilding or a strength athlete, but for us, just general run of the mill people, probably not.
It does. It has a bad rap because it does add water weight, but it's intracellular or intramuscular water weight. It's not like subcutaneous water, like under your skin, that's going to not help you at all. Like, I mean, it hydrates your muscle cells as well too. Yeah. So
it gets a bad rap in the bodybuilding world because bodybuilders, when they go to a show, they dehydrate themselves so much so they look lean. And if they're holding onto any water weight, it's just going to make them look not as lean as they need to be for competition. That's where it gets the bad rap from.
Yeah.
What else do I take? How long have we got? I take a vitamin B12 supplement because I'm almost vegan these days. Not quite. I've just had cheese on my veggie burger, so I'm almost vegan these days. So I take vitamin B12. I take D3 and K3 because why not? Okay, at the moment there's plenty of sun outside, but none of us on the globe really get enough sun to have enough vitamin D. And I was on the lower side when I had my blood test, so I've just kept taking it. Beetroot powder I take in a capsule because of the nitrates, which help with endurance running, oxygen absorption and various things. Montmorency cherry tablets I take as well, which are said to help with DOMS, sore muscles. Curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric, which helps with inflammation. Do take that. You must have it with black pepper. It's got to have black pepper in the tablet because curcumin on its own does nothing. It needs the black pepper. And actually, it was Bex that told me that. Isn't it, Bex? You told me that. What else do I take? I take a fish oil tablet for omega-3 oils, DHA, ALA, all that sort of stuff. And because my family are riddled with arthritis, so I've always tried to keep my joints healthy. Ashwagandha I take, which is an adaptogen, so it helps remove toxins and it's supposed to help with recovery and things like that quicker.
Not heard of that one.
I probably take a few other things as well, but I can't remember. But that's me. Yes, it's a lot, but those things have come out of. Oh, and I have CBD spray under my tongue in the evenings as well. All of those things came out of a blood test. In fact, 2 blood tests that I've done and 2 nutritionists that I've spoken to. One was the nutritionist that was helping my wife and a sports nutritionist. And I've just kept taking them. And every time I do, I have done other blood tests since, and my bloods are always good. So I have no reason to not take them, really.
But you also eat exceptionally well, Nick, don't you? Like you and Ali have always been very good with like eating proper whole foods and healthy meals.
Yeah, like I say, the last couple of months, not brilliant because of our situation, but since UTS, because I didn't feel great at UTS, and I looked at some of the pictures and I could see my little pouch belly bouncing up and down. So no, I've gone right back on it. I mean, my lunch today, they say you're supposed to have around 30 fruit and veg a week. I've probably had more than that today alone. Not portions, I mean just different fruit and veg. I just spent half an hour just chopping up every vegetable that we had in the fridge and had it as a salad with some quinoa and tofu and stuff like that on it. So I am eating exceptionally well at the moment, to the point where I even didn't pick up a packet of biscuits today.
Can I ask, why did you switch from eating meat to going vegetarian or vegan? I notice just some other ultra runners I've noticed, it seems like there's two totally different camps of that some people find a benefit in it for inflammation or performance, not cutting out meat. Others find that they're much, much stronger and they go, more towards like a carnivore type style diet. I don't know if you guys, how much you follow some of the American ultra races, but there's one called Cocodona 250. And it's just a couple weeks ago, the guy that set the course record, he eats only an animal-based diet, like just meat, milk, cheese. And so I'm sure it's personal too, from person to person, but I would just be curious to hear why. Or I know some people do it for ethical reasons too.
So for me personally, and it's funny actually, because I'm going to be a guest speaker at a running festival in a couple of months. And one of the guys who's organising it, who I know from old, he's carnivore. All he eats is steak and eggs 3 times a day. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that sounds like a good diet to me.
No thanks. I mean, I have gone vegetarian, almost vegan, because my son Max just said, I just don't want to eat animals. And I said, well, that's a beautiful thing to say, 5 years old. I'll do it. So I'm just supporting him, really.
What about eggs? Those are kind of, I know some people that, do it for ethical reasons too, but they'll still eat eggs because, they're like one of the most nutritious things on the planet, and they don't hurt any animals. Chickens lay them anyways every day.
No, we were eating eggs, but Alison's gone off them just since she started having a treatment. She's just like, well, I can't eat them, which is a bit of a shame because we normally buy like a big tray of 30 organic eggs from a farm up the road. And I just hadn't been eating them myself, so just haven't bought any more at the moment. But I purely have done it really because Max doesn't want to eat animals anymore. He just said he doesn't want to. So I said, okay, cool, I'll do it with you. And I just love vegetables as well. I just like
I eat a ton of vegetables too, but I don't know if I think everybody maybe says this before they ever try to go vegan or vegetarian. I just feel like I'd always be hungry.
Yeah, see, I don't get that way. It's a personal thing. It's a personal thing. And it's funny, nutrition can, just food in general. I know the saying is, if you're in the pub, don't talk about politics, money, or something else. I think you could add food preferences into that saying as well, because it can cause, on some of the Facebook groups, people go, oh, I'm a vegan, or I only eat meat, or, whichever extreme to whatever diet they subscribe to. And people get absolutely lynched. And it's crazy the arguments it can cause. I'm like, whatever. Do you know, if you want to eat steak and eggs all day, every day, not my bag. But if that's what you want to do, totally cool. It's a bit like if you're Muslim or or Christian, or I'm no but I'm like, that's your choice. So I don't get involved in the argumentative side of it. For me personally, it's just my son wanted to go vegetarian, so I was like, you know what, I'll support you. I'll go with you.
I was just curious from a performance side, because I've read and listened to so much of each side of the camp, but it seems like more so in the ultra running space, coming from the bodybuilding side for so many years, it was like, you have to have 6 or 8 ounces of meat protein with every meal 5 times a day. And now it's like a lot of ultra runners have seemed that they've noticed performance increases and inflammation and better recovery when they do cut meat out.
And then there will be the people that will say exactly the same thing because they've cut vegetables out.
Yeah,
seriously, that's what my mate Bob said. He said, I don't ever get injured. I don't have any inflammation. I feel amazing. I'm super energetic. Cool. If that works for you, no problem at all. But I tried to go keto once, not carnivore, but I did try going keto, and I hated it.
I would never even consider it. There's so much scientific evidence of how it's better for performance, especially in runners, to have carbs.
Exactly. Yeah. No, for me, it's purely, I love eating vegetables. I like the wide variety of flavors. For me, I don't have a problem with chicken, and I've eaten plenty of it. But sometimes, if you have chicken 3 times a week, or some bodybuilders will have it 7 times a week, everything just tastes like chicken.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that for me. Answer your question, Steve. Supplements?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Cool. And you did ask around different times of the training cycle as well. Things like the anabolic window, you must have protein within 20 minutes of doing a workout. Yeah. Okay. Make sure you do have protein and carbs close to a meal, because it will help. But the whole anabolic window, you must have it within 20 minutes. That's been kind of knocked away now as bro science. And just, if you just have enough protein in your general diet, unless you're trying to win a bodybuilding competition, just make sure you've got enough protein. And don't underestimate the amount of protein. That is the one thing I will say, is that yes, Nick did cite that carbs are important, but protein is really important for runners as well, especially for us people with hairlines that are escaping to the other side of our head. And then, of course, although this isn't supplements, it's more around the carb loading side of things, but you could probably argue reducing a bit of your protein intake in the days leading up to a race, just to make more room for carbohydrate loading, because otherwise you're just overloading the amount of calories and you just end up getting bloated. Chris Chaplin asks, what's the best strategy to fuel, hydrate and rest leading up to a night ultra? If my race doesn't start until 10 p.m, when will carbs stop being effective as loading? Really short answer to that is they won't. As long as you're eating normally throughout the day, they're not. And you're not planning on doing some super hard effort at 9 a.m. before you race at 10 o'clock, which, we're not going to do that. You're not going to be burning much glycogen just because the race starts at 10 p.m. So no, I wouldn't worry about that. Do I take naps at lunch? I'll come on to that in a second. So let's do fuel, hydrate and rest. So fuel and hydrate is going to be pretty much exactly the same as you would be doing for whatever time the race starts. You could probably argue starting your carb loading on the Wednesday a bit later in the day, but ultimately it isn't going to make a huge amount of difference. Carbs are definitely not going to stop being effective unless you do something that's going to burn off a load of glycogen before the race, which you're not, hopefully, planning on doing anything like that. So I wouldn't say anything different, really. Does that answer the first part of your question? Oh, cats and dogs. Cat doesn't look happy about it. Yeah, does that answer your question on that bit?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. And then, do I take naps at lunch, lie in, become a night owl for the days leading up? What's the best strategy? So, and then rest and what you do with your strategy for rest. So it has been proven that you can bank sleep. So in the week leading up to the race, it is a good practice to get as much sleep as you possibly can. And James, this is going to be the same for you when you do your crazy long one. You can bank sleep. So if you can, get an extra hour, 2 hours during the week where, you're going to be tapering, so you're not going to be running anywhere near as much. So perhaps instead of that, that hour, 90-minute run that you were going to do on a Wednesday is only half an hour, because it's going to probably be a 3-mile foundation run. Get an extra half hour in bed, go to bed a little bit earlier, nap the day before, the day of the race. Yeah, great. If you can, that's going to be an ideal strategy, just to prolong what you're going to have going on in the night. It is also pretty much been proven that it is not a good strategy to change your sleeping habits. So you'll get a lot of, particularly for like 100-mile races and stuff, you'll get a lot of ultra runners that will go, oh, well, I'm going to go and do my sleep deprivation training. That's a terrible strategy. We don't want to be deprived of sleep, because we perform really badly, and actually it can spiral into things like illness, even injury, if you don't sleep properly. So actually sleep deprivation training and changing your sleeping habits has been proven to not be a very good strategy at all. So no, sleep normally. I would just say, if you can, yes. A bit like as if you were going to go onto a night shift. For anybody who's done or does night shifts, Nathan's a good person to talk to. He does night shifts. Have a nap the day before, the day of your night shift. So your night shift being Wendover Woods. Have a nap, not not a bad strategy at all. But no, don't do anything else with your sleep other than get more of it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Cool. And then Chris asks, Evans asks another question. Where has it gone? Do ice baths have a physical effect, or are the results more mental placebo? Well, considering that I have one literally just outside the door, I have done a bit of reading on this. I mean, I've read Wim Hof's book. I've listened to some of the podcasts where he's been on. I'm also quite a big fan of a guy called Alex Hutchison. He's got a book called Endure, which is pretty good. The science still isn't very good around ice baths and whether they actually do anything or not. And particularly if I take Alex Hutchison's words straight out of his mouth, really, they don't know enough about it that it's going to benefit you or detriment you. The one thing that is a bit of a question mark is that inflammation, whilst chronic inflammation, as in inflammation all of the time in our bodies, is not a good thing. That can lead to unfortunate things like, don't I know it, cancer, illness, various different diseases, etc. So chronic inflammation is not good. But when we've been out and we've been doing our training and we get slightly inflamed from doing that training, we get a slight bit of inflammation, which the body's natural response to is to use that inflammation to adapt and get better so it can cope with that, that thing that we're doing the next time. So in our case, running or strength work. And by having an ice bath, what you're doing is you're preventing that inflammation. And one thing that they are fairly sure can happen is that ice baths actually delay the improvement in performance because it cuts down that acute inflammation effect that we have and need after doing training. So what I would say is if you are going to do ice baths, do them as far apart from your training as possible. So like you see videos of, the Kenyans, they go out, they do their massive long runs and then they get straight into an ice bath. That's probably not a good thing to do because you're just getting rid of that inflammation effect. So I have seen things like 4 to 8 hours cited. So if you do a hard run or a run or a strength session, don't get in the ice bath for 4 to 8 hours. I do mine straight away, first thing in the morning. And the reason I do mine first thing in the morning is because one of the things that has shown to be good about ice baths is that first thing in the morning, and it was on Huberman Lab, is that there's a couple of things that we can do to improve our sleep. And one of those things is raising our core body temperature as quick as we possibly can first thing in the morning. And it sounds counterintuitive, but getting in an ice bath raises our core body temperature because it's like, oh God, we're cold. We need to warm ourselves up. So that's a really good thing to do to help improve sleep the next night, as is getting sunlight as quick as possible as well. So I do it partly for that reason, but also partly because I just like getting in a bloody big tub of cold water. There's nothing more exhilarating in the morning than, whoo, yeah. So for me, yeah, it's probably a bit more of a mental thing. And I quite like the sound of that science around. I mean, I sleep really well. So that's why I've always had cold showers in the morning and started doing the ice bath recently. But is there any physical benefit or mental benefit? I definitely don't believe all these people on Instagram at the moment who have been signed up as Lumi ambassadors. Going, oh, I'm day 10 into my ice baths and I'm definitely recovering quicker. Bollocks, are you? You don't have a clue what's going on. You're just saying it because you think that's the right thing to say. I think it's very much down to personal preference and just what do you get out of it? As I say, I just like getting in a big thing of cold water.
Yeah, because I like the cold showers in the morning. Have a normal shower, then just turn it to cold for a couple of minutes. And I say that invigorates me in it. And I think the process of breath control helps massively.
Yeah.
Just so you don't get used to that cold, so you're not suddenly gasping. You've got a little bit more control over your diaphragm, your breathing. So that's what I do at the moment. But yeah, I looked at one, and since then my Facebook's just been absolutely bombarded with adverts for them.
Yeah. I got one branded new Recover, I think it's called. I mean, I think they're all probably made by the same factory in China, and then just lots of different people have just branded them differently. So yeah, you're right. I think the breath thing's quite a good thing for me as well, because I tend to spend about 3 to 4 minutes in mine. Nice heavy breathing, and that is supposed to be one of the best things you can do to relieve anxiety. But yeah, I'm not going to sort of jump around going, oh yeah, definitely helping with my recovery or my athletic performance, or getting rid of injuries or keeping injuries away, because there's just no real science that supports it.
That's it. So, okay, so it's personal sense. It makes you feel good. It's doing something.
Yeah, and again, just to take Alex Hutchison's words out of his mouth, he kind of sums it up with, if you like getting in a cold tub of water, then you go for it. If you don't like going into a tub of cold water, then don't feel like you have to, because it's going to give you some, super performance or mental benefit, because there just isn't the scientific evidence to support that it does, which I think is a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's it. And then you'll find out what you get out of it personally, whether it's mental conditioning or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you might get in it and go, what the fuck am I spending 3 minutes of my precious morning doing this stupid thing for?
Or you'll just push the ice out and put it in the gym while you're sitting there.
Yeah, just end up filling it with soil and turning it into a tomato growing thing. Cool. I think that was all I remember seeing for questions. Did anybody else have anything else? Bex, have you got any?
No, I very much enjoyed, where I stand on the nutrition stuff and ice bath and information. So I think it's a good thing I've been muted today, in a good way, because I would have probably spoke nonstop on many topics, such as eggs. But thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Bex is a vegan who's been doing ice baths for quite a while. In fact, it was her ice bath that inspired me to buy my own. So
yeah, and I totally agree with everything you said. All the research I've done, everything I've learned is post exercise is actually no, don't ice certain injuries that we have been built into us. It has the opposite effect. Your body needs to do the work to heal. But an ice bath, for all the reasons you mentioned, and enjoying it, and endorphins, that's what you love, do it.
Yeah, that's a good point with the whole icing thing. It's, I know Chris has been, in fact, both Chris's have been seeing physios recently for different things, and I always get worried when you get them going, put some ice on it or do some stretching, like that. That's pretty old stuff, particularly the rest ice compression elevation.
Yeah.
Run a mile if a physio gives you that. Ask for your money back. Anyway, it's been lovely to see you all. Remember, slow the fuck down. No one gives a fuck about your pace on Strava. It's too bloody warm to be worrying about that stuff. The great thing is that when it does cool down, it's a bit like winter training. So I find summer training a bit like winter training, where it is a bit of a grind, but when you come out of it the other side and you start hitting, all your A races and stuff, it's the benefits are amazing. So knuckle in.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
See you all later. Bye.
Great.
And that's another lap done on the Maximum Mileage Running podcast. Thank you for joining me and my athletes and my guests on this wild ride through the world of ultra, road and trail running. And remember, whether it's a mountain trail or the local road, every mile you conquer makes you stronger. Keep pushing, keep laughing, and of course, keep swearing when that hill just seems a little too steep. If you enjoyed today's journey, don't forget to subscribe and leave me a nice review, please. Your feedback does help me go that extra mile. Until next time, this is your host, Nick Hancock, reminding you to make every mile count. Run long, run strong, and run with maximum mileage. Catch you on the next run.